We are back with more NBA playoff coverage, and in this one, I will be covering all the Game 3 action to get things started. We'll start off with the Pistons and the Knicks. And to be honest, I did miss the early portion of this game because I was wrapped up in extracurricular duties. But in the midst of that, I was tracking it on my phone, and let's just say that the Knicks were able to get off to a pretty hot start that was maintained relatively well prior to my getting in there and watching things play out at some point in the second quarter. A few minutes into it, there was a graphic that stated that the Knicks had 39 front court points while the Pistons had just 4. So I had to take a look at it. And for a while there, Duran hadn't scored. Tobias Harris hadn't scored. And Tim Hardaway Jr. might have been shooting inefficiently. I don't think Asar Thompson even scored at that point. So it was like, what the hell was that? That was a clear tell. That's why they were down by that much in the first place. No intensity from your front court guys down there. And then the Knicks are able to just go that ballistic with OG Anunoby, with Karl Anthony Towns, with Mikal Bridges, just doing anything they can to clamp you down while also being able to generate offense for their own team. That's ridiculous. Now, that would start to change a little bit, but the Knicks were still able to get it into a 13-point lead after Mikal Bridges hit a three-pointer, and then Jalen Brunson ended off the quarter with a typical layup of his. All of that was in the midst of a 23-6 run as the Pistons offense, again, just had absolutely no response. Cade Cunningham was kind of having similar struggles at this point to what happened in Game 1 because, again, I don't know what makes him necessarily believe that they're going to stop sending the pressure. I guess he's just too young to understand it. And as a result, in some cases, in some crucial situations, they got his ass. And it's like that's going to have to change around if you want to truly be able to put a dent in this series and force the Knicks' hand. Now, the third quarter would go a little better for the Pistons overall. They would be able to limit the Knicks' offense a little bit. And they also got some of their front court players involved. I mean, right off the bat, you had Jalen Duran getting some points to start off the second half, so that was good. And Tim Hardaway Jr. would also begin to hit some shots. You would have Asar Thompson getting more involved as well. And over the course of this time, the Pistons would actually go on a 20-7 run to bring the game within 5. But they would crumble just a little bit after they subbed out Jalen Duran. Granted, they had no choice because once more, especially against a player like Jalen Brunson, it's a given, but he got into foul trouble once again. And every single time that happens, that has happened so far in this series, the defensive intensity of the team is just weakened. So they were able to allow the Knicks to just get back into their own ways with all of this stuff left and right without any sort of resistance whatsoever. I mean, even Miles McBride, for crying out loud, was able to hit a fucking three-pointer. And then they also allow, because you have Dennis Schroeder matched up against him of all people, Mikal Bridges would miss a jumper, but of course, knowing what Josh Hart is strongest at, Dennis Schroeder just allows him to box his ass out, and he gets an easy rebound for a quick two-pointer to bring the game up to 10 for the Knicks. These fourth quarters for the Pistons in this entire series have been absolutely just haunting. They would immediately allow the Knicks, despite bringing it closer and closer, they would eventually be able to take an 11-point lead with 6 minutes and 56 seconds left to go. There was also a graphic around this time displayed on the broadcast that stated in the playoffs so far, which have been 14 games to that point, the first team to reach 100 points in the playoffs or in a playoff game so far had been undefeated, 14-0 prior to this point. So the Pistons were naturally going to be in danger. Obviously, you're going up against what is believed to be a stronger team anyways. They've already gotten to this point, and it seems like with a lead that is that high, they'd be trying their hardest to close it out. So they were in for a rough time here. However, they would be able to get things close, and then still they were just so far away from truly being able to capitalize. Like, their offense would start to wake it up a little bit, and you would even have Tobias Harris bring the game within 3 for his first points of the fucking night. But whether it is just undisciplined defense with fouling Jalen Brunson again and then giving the Knicks an extra possession to work with, whether it was just untimely shot attempts that were just forced, whether it was crucial turnovers at the wrong moments of time, the Pistons just could not muster it together. At least during this initial stretch. Things would get a little interesting in just the final 23 seconds. I mean, you would have Jalen Brunson get fouled after Tim Hardaway made a three-pointer, and he would make his first free throw rather, and try to intentionally miss the second. Well, no, this wasn't the intentional miss, but Jalen Duren would get the rebound on it, call a timeout, and Tobias Harris, with just a single second to go, notched another bucket on the night, giving him 5 points and bringing the Pistons within just 1. But we have around a second left. So if they were going to foul, they needed to do it very quickly, and they would be able to make it happen instantly. So Jalen Brunson would get another shot. He would make the first one and intentionally miss the second one, which would initially force the game to be over. But upon further review, there was some sort of technicality that occurred in which Jalen Brunson ended up violating with this miss, and the Pistons would have another chance to at least try to inbound for a shot. Now, granted, the odds of them making this with just under a tenth of a second left was, well, just under a full second left, rather, they were improbable regardless. But all you ask for is a chance, and what would happen instead is that Jalen Duren, you would naturally have LG Anunoby pressuring Kate Cunningham on the inbound, and it was effective enough because Jalen Duren threw up a fucking overthrow of hell, and it went straight out of bounds. The Knicks would then try to advance the ball, and they would win the game just like that. One of the more anticlimactic endings you'll ever see, but it was rather interesting to see it develop still. Even with the Pistons making that late surge right there, all it takes is just smarter and more calculated play in the beginning or even during the middle stretch of that quarter where you just gave up all those opportunities for free to a Knicks team desperate to close this out and take the series lead, which they would end up doing as they are up 2-1 at this point, and would win it 118 to 116. Yeah, holy shit. The minutes logged here are ridiculous. I mean, the Pistons may have lost due to a lack of experience in these types of settings, but when you look at the Knicks, I suppose that people for the most part play well. But to run your starting lineup on a court for that much time, I mean, nobody on this lineup logged less than 39 minutes, and OG Anunoby played the most with 43. I don't know how sustainable that truly is, but it got the job done as far as this particular game goes. Karl-Anthony Towns would actually lead the way with a much better performance. 31 points, 8 rebounds, and an assist, with a steal and 2 blocks for him on 10 of 18 shooting and 4 threes. Definitely needed his contributions in a game that ended up being that close. And that kind of intensity, again, it kept a defender like Jalen Duren constantly in a state of confusion. And it forced him into many situations where he was just out of position. That is the type of impact that Karl-Anthony Towns can have on the game when he's able to space the floor like that. That's obvious. But honing into that, when you're facing up against these centers that are sometimes stronger, you got to be able to put that on full display. As for Jalen Brunson, he would have 30 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds, and a block on 9 of 20 shooting, and went 11 of 13 from the line. The Knicks also, it helped them that they were that accurate from the free throw line. Even if Jalen Brunson did miss a couple late, it created even more of a problem, because not only were the Pistons fouling so goddamn much, but it wasn't even like it was effective. They were just padding on extra points time and time again. OG Anunoby had 22 points on 7 of 17 shooting, and Mikal Bridges had 20 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, and 2 blocks on 7 of 13 shooting with 3 threes. Josh Hart also had 6 points, but 11 rebounds and 9 assists. Because again, this is just what he is at this point. Like I've said in the past, jack of all trades, master of none. It is literally that simple. But every team could use a player like that, especially in cases like these. As for the Pistons, again, Tobias Harris, I would have liked him to do much better than this, but I mean, 5 points late did get them in position at least to have a chance. You just needed a stronger output early, and I don't even know what happened. Like, that was the Tobias Harris of fucking past. Like, this is what he would be doing for other basketball teams like the damn 76ers in the fucking playoffs just a few years back. He had been doing so well to start off the series. You've got to, in his position, turn that back around, straight up. Jalen Duren would finish the game despite struggling in the first half. He would have 16 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 assists on 7 of 10 shooting. Malik Beasley had a horrible shooting night. Speaking of, 2 of 10 shooting overall from the three-point line, and just 12 points off the bench. When his three-point shooting has been the energy, honestly, that this team is needed in terms of keeping their efficiency at a respectable clip, so as not to fall to the wayside in some of these other games. But the fact that you shot that damn much and just missed everything consistently, like at that point, it would have been better for Bickerstaff to just like get him, like call different plays for somebody else to get them involved. It was just not the move at this point. Tim Hardaway Jr., for example, would finish with 24 points, 2 rebounds, and an assist on 7 of 13 shooting with 7 threes somehow. Would have been better just continue letting him fire it up. And you probably would have been winning the game at some point here. Also, Ron Holland II weirdly had just 6 points on the night without making a single shot from the field. A player as young as he is, I mean, you want it for the death, and obviously you don't necessarily have Isaiah Stewart to expound right now. He's still been hurt, and their overall protection in the paint and at the rim has suffered a little bit because of it, but I don't necessarily think that he should be getting, I mean, I guess 12 minutes is fine, but I don't know. Like, from what I've seen, he just looks lost out there. But granted, maybe that's just a representation of where the entire team is at. They're going to have to pick it back up in Detroit for Game 4. Like, it just sucks for that fan base, right? They've waited that long to see a playoff win, and now you bring it to Detroit after quite the long time. No, everybody into that game was coming in and ecstatic to see them play. And then to lose in heartbreaking fashion like that, like, damn, bro. Shit is tough. But not as tough as this game right here, because the Nuggets would take on the Clippers on NBA TV, and they got their asses kicked. I can't even give you anything analytical here necessarily, or like get into a full breakdown, because again, obviously it wasn't even broadcasted on national television. But I was tracking this the entire time, and like, my goodness, the amount of distance that the Clippers were just able to create throughout this entire game was insane. And it's just, it made absolutely no sense to like watch that just break down in real time, because this had been a series that was competitive for legitimately, like, outside of, I guess, a few minutes of each of the games. Like, bro, these were single-digit leads for the longest time between these teams, with each of them just going back and forth at each other, trying to outdo each other on any given night. And then we get into this game, and you mean to tell me that they get up to a lead at the end of the game, in which makes you lose by 34 points to them? 117 to 83? That's pitiful. In it, I mean, the Clippers had a well-rounded game, no matter how you look at it. You had 6 players in double digits, with Kawhi Leonard having 21 points, 11 rebounds, and 6 assists leading the way on 7-17 shooting. Harden had 20 points, 9 assists, and 6 rebounds. Zubac had 19 points and 9 rebounds. Norman Powell had 20 points for the best outing he had in this particular series so far. And even Batum and Derrick Jones Jr. off the bench had 12 and 10 respectively on real good shooting. And that was the big difference here. I mean, the Nuggets lost the three-point battle by a large margin. Not even just in efficiency. I mean, the Clippers shot 19.3% more efficiently than them from range in this one, because the Nuggets only went 7 for 26, which is paltry. But in the same vein, the volume as well. They made 18 of their 39 field goals from 3, which essentially ended up making the difference here, seeing as they lost by 34 points. And not to mention, too, fouls were also just an issue for this team all throughout the game. They turned the ball over, which had been a theme that determined how the games in each of the first two would go for either team. And whoever won the turnover battle won the game. And obviously the Clippers didn't have here, but still by this damn much compared to just single digit and one possession ball games in the last couple. That's insane. It's like, come on, man. The Nuggets, on the other hand, I mean, they tried to get Schroeder going, and I figured that they probably should, especially after Westbrook went down as well. Apparently, he got injured in this game, so he only played 9 minutes. But, bro, Schroeder nor Pickett did anything at all. Also sucks that when you look at it, too, I mean, Michael Porter Jr., like, what are we doing? Like, 2 of 9 shooting for 7 points? 6 rebounds as well. It's like, what? In 35 minutes? That's just atrocious. And again, like, at some point again, Michael Porter Jr. has to just understand that driving and taking potential mid-range shots might be the better option in some cases. To go 1 of 6 from 3 and yet still have the mentality to keep firing. Especially against smaller defenders. I get that Kris Dunn, because he was likely the matchup in this game, he had been the matchup against him in the first 2. Kris Dunn, yes, he is a great on-ball and perimeter defender, but at the same time, you stand at 6'11", and that man, Kris Dunn, is like 6'4". You mean to tell me that you can't try and impose your will in the paint against this guy, or create even the slightest bit of separation on a drive to get up a mid-range shot? Like, seriously? It's insane, man. I mean, Jokic and Murray played well. Jokic had 23, 13, and 13. And then Jamal Murray had 23 and 4. Turnovers, again, on their end. Some of them were costly, but at the same time, as well, if you can't get players to hit shots, you're naturally going to try to force everything at that point. Like, the fact that you can get blown out to that extent to where Nikola Jokic actually decides to show emotion. Because there was literally something in post that I watched where he just started going ballistic on the sidelines, because that just should not be acceptable. And I can't blame him for going off on them niggas, because it's crazy. Like, what the fuck are we doing exactly? Like, tighten up out there. Like, the Nuggets had been doing relatively well against the Clippers all season long, and then you get in the Intuit Dome for this crucial game 3, and all of a sudden you just lose sight of the mission. It's just not acceptable. And certainly for the next game, they would have to reconvene about pretty much everything, because nothing went their way in this game. Maybe that would be seen as a little bit of a good thing, though, because if nothing ended up working, then, you know, the game plan could only improve from there, because you have a vast pool of, I guess, points of which to attack in any given situation. So something may be able to give in the next game, but they've got to go out there and take it. They can't just let this shit come to them. If you're going to stick around and wait for that, the Clippers are just going to keep on churning. And they're not going to stop their own pursuit of victory to allow you to creep back in. All right, moving on to the Thunder and Grizzlies. And to be honest, the first 2 games for the Grizzlies were absolute hell. But they were bringing it back to Memphis to at least try to steal a game, maybe 2 at home. And let's just say to start off this one, they certainly embraced the idea of having the home court advantage because they would belt out to a fucking 12-4 lead. That would not relent either. I mean, yes, they did collapse on defense in certain cases, making similar mistakes that they did in the first couple of games when it came to allowing the Thunder to make just open shot after open shot. But the offense in this one truly woke the hell up, led by none other than Scottie Pippen Jr. to start them off, and then Ja Morant as well, also just being sure to get involved as best as he possibly could. Most people outside of Desmond Bane, ironically enough, understood the assignment, and with that, they were able to put up a 40-point first quarter. Then the blowout would continue in the second quarter. I mean, they continue to take full control of this game overall, as they would end up going on a 35-15 run during the stretch, just downing shot after shot, doing everything in their power to exact as much revenge on the Thunder as they possibly could for all of this fucking devastation that they caused, not just the players, but the entire fan base during these first couple of games. Now, that being said, the Grizzlies, after a routine Ja Morant acrobatic jumper inside the paint with the slasher that he is, they would go up 67-40. The fact that a Thunder team who had been imposing their will that much over just the first 2 games would be held to just 40 at this point. Pretty wild to consider. But they would try to extend that, because after you would have SGA miss another routine shot for him, and following a rebound by Cason Wallace, Scottie Pippen Jr. would actually get a steal off of Jalen Williams, and he would just push the ball up the court. Now, during this entire time, Luka Dort is trying to hawk his ass down, but Ja Morant isn't too far behind him. So, with Scottie Pippen Jr. trying his hardest to avoid his potential shot getting blocked or the attempt getting stopped, he tries to keep the fast break going by doing a little behind the back bounce pass to Ja Morant as he's trailing, trying to see what he can do in this situation. But during this time, Dort is trying to at least account for a shot contest, but then recognizes that the ball is headed in another direction. So in this time, he slips, and his momentum is carrying him backwards, while Ja Morant picks up the ball, and his momentum is carrying him forwards. He tries to go up for a dunk, but he kind of falls over a falling Dort, and then he hits what looked like to me to be his groin, straight up on the ground. He would come back in because it was a foul and try to get the free throws, but neither of them were made. Granted, he was grimacing the whole time. He could barely make his way out there. And it would be determined that he would be out for the rest of that game. They ruled it as a hip injury, but on the replay, man, his groin got fucked up tremendously. And now the Grizzlies were at an impasse a little bit. I mean, yes, it would hurt that Ja Morant naturally is going to be out of this game, but at the same time, you have been spotted a 27-point lead. The best you can do in this moment is to just hold on to it. And granted, Desmond Bane would understand that with Ja Morant being out, he would have to be the primary ball handler in some fashion and step it up. He would immediately do that by getting a layup to go. But then their defense, even after a few good possessions on their offensive side of the ball, would go for them. The lead would shorten up just a little bit still with a Luka buzzer beater. They maintained a 26-point lead with 77 points to the Thunder's 51 heading into halftime. Then shit would hit the fan. Truly. Because yes, Ja Morant was out, but even then you still had a job to do and a defensive identity to uphold, which it feels like they just got completely away from. Also, Desmond Bane just did a poor job of leading this team. I mean, yes, Scottie Pippen Jr. was still leading them in overall scoring by this point, I believe. But you are one of the 3 players considered to be true star caliber players for this team. And when they needed him the most, he did not show up. It also helped, too, that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, despite his own struggles from the field, was able to do a great job of getting other teammates involved. As you would see multiple players not named him finding lanes to pass through and getting some solid assists to some of their core guys. Chet Holmgren especially would turn it up during this stretch, and especially when we look at how things went in the fourth quarter. Now Jalen Williams would end off the third with a buzzer beater of his own. But Chet Holmgren, along with Shai, really came alive in this one. They would just trade timely bucket after timely bucket back and forth as the Grizzlies would continue to crumble. They had a few responses in them, eventually getting the lead back up to 6. But after this Scottie Pippen Jr. 3 right here, the Thunder simply had to go on a 9-0 run following this point for the remaining 4:51 to end off the game, as Chet Holmgren would get 5 points of his own before Alex Caruso, with 19 seconds to go, would get a routine fast break opportunity in which absolutely no one on that team decided to get back on defense whatsoever. He would then end the game with a free throw, and before you knew it, after a 27-11 overall run for OKC in the fourth quarter, or from the start of the fourth quarter, they would win 114-108 to extend their series lead to 3-0. I do recognize that Ja got hurt and it was going to be hard. But this was one of the worst performances by a team that I had ever seen in my life. I'm not going to lie to you. One of the worst collapses that I had ever laid witness to in real time. It was a piss poor performance no matter how you look at it. Like, granted, some of their players did contribute, but when I'm looking especially at guys like Santi Aldama and even more pressing Desmond Bane. Yeah, no. Because his deficiencies were even more glaring than Aldama. Even though Aldama had just 14 points on 6 of 14 cheating with horrible spacing across the entire night. And his defense was also extremely questionable, which is typical for him. But then I look at Desmond Bane and I see 10 points 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, a block, and 5 turnovers on 3 of 14 shooting, with 2 of 11 shooting from deep. Because that's how you were winning the game in the first place. The Grizzlies had a tremendous advantage to start things off in terms of spacing the floor. And they quite literally, over the course of the rest of the game, conformed to how the Thunder were playing from deep. Because in reality, when the game was all said and done, the Grizzlies made only one more shot in just 4 more attempts than the Thunder did. And you mean to tell me that you thought by putting yourself on an even playing field with the number 1 seed and the best team in the league that you could stand a chance against them? And that, again, all of that plays into a factor as to why the Thunder, I guess for most teams who would end up coming out of the play-in, were going to be a bad match. And this game just put the icing on the cake from that standpoint. I mean, think about this. The Grizzlies held a 29-point lead at one point and blew it. All you had to do was maintain your style of play. You had them right where you wanted them to be. The team has literally beaten others in every way. They've blown teams out. They have the capability to come from behind, which they ended up doing here. I mean, bro, yes, Morant is a great player, but we are talking about a stretch for the Grizzlies team where they were a collective minus 34, I believe. Minus 35, rather. Nah. Yeah, that terrible from the field in terms of overall box score as soon as he left the game. At that point, you just deserve to lose. Like, there is no way. Like, you started off well immediately. What the hell changed after that? There's literally no excuse you can make for that, even if the injury did take place. It's like, come on. The next half, for a good portion of time, saw the Grizzlies dead ass shooting just 6 of 24 over the course of a good portion of time to start out. And then also, Chet Holmgren had just a single point in the first half. They were doing a great job on him. And overall, they just ended up collapsing. Again, Jaren Jackson Jr. still did finish with 22 points on 7 of 16 shooting, and Scottie Pippen Jr., of all people, had 28, 5, 3 steals, and a block on 8 of 16 shooting with 6 threes. As I did mention for the Thunder, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander didn't have the best shooting night, but he still finished with 31, 8, a steal, a block, and all on 10 of 26 shooting. Not the best, but still, the ability to get other players involved and then be able to lay back on some possessions and allow others to get hot and take their own chance at it was crucial for them. Jalen Williams, for example, 26 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists for him, along with 2 steals on 9 of 16 shooting and 2 threes. Ja Morant also had 24 points and 8 rebounds on 8 of 16 shooting with 5 threes and 23 points in the second half, including tremendous fourth quarter play. For him to be that young, he stepped it up over the course of the entire night. Isaiah Joe and Alex Caruso also had 10 points each off the bench. So yeah, just quite the collapse. And again, if the first 2 games weren't already a signifier that this series would likely end in a sweep, this defeat said all that I needed to know about the Grizzlies' chances in this series. Because at that point, no matter what you've done, even in moments where you have seemed to play well for good stretches, the Thunder keep finding ways to overcome everything and just beat the hell out of you. So you truly do not stand a chance at that point. Correction, minus 33 in terms of overall box plus minus as a team when Ja Morant went out. Again, in that ballpark. And either way you slice it, that's still bad. It's like there's just no way that should happen. It's unacceptable. Moving on to the Magic and Celtics on Friday. And I would watch bits and parts of the game play out, catching a good amount of the most important moments, even though I was alternating in between this and the NFL draft, which will be another video for another day, because a lot of shit happened there. Anyways, though, the Celtics did obviously get out to, their early first quarter lead, which has been typical for this series so far, but the Magic were honestly able to get themselves back into things. They would have a 31-27 advantage at the end of the first, and it felt like with what I had been seeing so far, with Bonchero having 13 first quarter points, despite also having 2 fouls, they were certainly going to have to watch for that over the course of the game, given everything that would happen. Anthony Black at some point in this second quarter would also reach 3, so that certainly put them in some trouble, I'm not going to lie. And also, the Celtics were able to just feast in this second quarter because for whatever reason, while Orlando did have a few offensive responses in their bag, one, they went on another cold streak offensively, and every single time that happens, the Celtics have been taking advantage, and that did not change in this case. Also, on a good amount of their makes down the stretch of this quarter, the Magic kept allowing Cole Anthony to get switched on different players. He got switched onto Jason Tatum multiple times. I think he was guarding Kristaps Porzingis at some point, or maybe, yeah, stuff like that. And they were just able to get themselves some easy buckets because he's just not a good defender in the first place. And then you factor in just how tall some of these players are and how they tower over him. And we're leaving him in the paint with these people. That just was not a smart defensive game plan at that point. And they took full advantage of it. It also didn't help that some of the bigger players were not holding their own either. I mean, Bonchero, though he has the potential to be a good one, he just kept letting people blow right by him. I mean, Derek White would try to get him again with some of these sneaky layups, and they ended up going in. There's just no way. But again, in some cases, there are people who can get away with playing good defense without necessarily having great basketball IQ and general ball skills. But in, I feel, most cases, a great part, a great tell, and a great percentage of a person's ability to play defense in any given setting is made up mostly by technique. You gotta know how to get low, you gotta know how to slide your feet, you gotta know how to rotate, and you gotta know how to stay disciplined while matching the physicality of another player. You know, height isn't necessarily everything, and physical attributes do help a little bit, but without technique for some people, you can go out there and try and pull off some of that bullshit and it still won't work. Now, after that stretch, during which they would go on a 19-5 run, the Celtics, and during which Tatum himself would put up 8 straight fucking points, just torching them, it felt like the Magic could continue sinking because, again, though Banchero and Wagner were still going off, it did not feel as though they wanted to turn things up a notch defensively. They were still allowing just, like, certain plays to fall through. But then, things would turn around for them a little bit. Instantly. Because I said all this after Jason Tatum was just able to do what he ended up doing here with another 3 to open up half. But the Magic will find their stride. I mean, yes, they did get 1 3-pointer, but they had finally done what I had been saying they should be doing the whole time. They were getting themselves good looks in the paint with pretty just spicy shots, all things considered. Some of them were tough, but you're just barreling your way in the paint. You're getting some buckets, and you are treating the mid-range, in some cases here, as your 3-point shot. If you know that you are on a team that's necessarily good at shooting 3-pointers, why not settle, in most cases, for the next closest thing and just work your way up to taking some timely threes rather than just spamming them up and shooting yourselves out of ball games? And that's exactly what they would do. Wendell Carter Jr. would also have 8 third-quarter points during this time, as the Magic would ultimately take back the lead, being up by 3 at the end of a third quarter that saw them go on a 20-6 run. And that just reinforced the idea of them being in a defensive bout, forcing the Celtics to play their brand of basketball and allowing them to control the pace of this game and determine how things were going to go, not the other way around. And that would pay dividends for them for the most part, as they would start off the fourth quarter taking even more control, going up by as much as 9. Now, with that being said, the Magic would get a little more scoring, and even going up by as much as 12 points at just the 7-minute, 1-second mark of the fourth quarter. And then the Celtics, being the reigning champs that they are, would storm right the hell back. Now, granted, this is an even greater reflection of how badly the Magic botched this period of time, but they were just able to truly find some great offense here with some of the play calls they dialed up, as Al Horford would get a 3 to go, and then you would also have Jaylen Brown at some point get involved. Jason Tatum rather get involved at some point here, and he just continued to go ballistic as he would return, putting up a great overall performance. Derek White would then tie up the ball game, but even with them giving all that up, Franz Wagner still had a few tricks up his sleeve, because he would get multiple possessions in a row where he essentially sealed up the ball game with some timely layups getting right at the rim against Porzingis at this time and getting one right by him off the glass. Then I think getting in a push floater. I think he got another layup against Porzingis from right on the other side. And it would get the game up to 4 points for them. The Celtics would have another response in there. And now things would get real interesting because the Magic would get themselves another chance after a little bit of controversial stuff eventually would go down. They would have a chance where Franz Wagner yet again decided to put up a 3-point shot, which I didn't understand, and Jason Tatum got the rebound with just a few seconds left. They would advance the ball up, and they would try to go for a tip-in dunk attempt. So Derek White lobbed it up out of bounds, but the attempt was futile as the Magic just did a great job of swarming and packing the paint. All of their guys were on it. There was no room to get it off, and it got swatted down instantly with the game ending right there. And another anticlimactic ending, if you will, though the Celtics were able to give the Magic a run for their money in many ways. The Magic did eventually win the ball game here. So at least avoid the sweep and maybe give themselves the momentum they need to try and tie this thing up. Now, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope would have yet another game where he went scoreless. Gary Harris off the bench would also go scoreless in 22 minutes. But his defense especially stood out for them. He just did a great job of pressuring pretty much a good amount of the ball handlers he faced in this game. And some of the stops they were able to generate with him on the court eventually made the difference here. As for Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner, Banchero had 29, 6, an assist and 2 steals, 11 of 27, 10 of 25 shooting, and 2 threes. And then Franz had 32 points and 7 rebounds and 8 assists with just a single turnover, activating a little bit of his point forward qualities. Now, 11 of 27 shooting is certainly not the greatest, and 3 of 13 from deep also is not. But in a game where that literally came down to just the final 0.3 of a second, the buckets he ended up getting late did effectively ice it for them. Wendell Carter Jr. also had 10 points, 12 rebounds, and an assist on 4 of 8 shooting. As for the Celts, Jason Tatum did come back with a vengeance. He had 36 points, 9 rebounds, and 4 assists. Although 7 turnovers is atrocious, he did shoot 10 of 22 from the field with 4 threes. Jaylen Brown also had 19 points, 6 rebounds, and an assist. Also 6 turnovers on his end. The fact that your primary ball handlers in Tatum and Brown struggled to get a hold of it, again, that's a testament to the Magic's on-ball defense in this game. They had a much better game plan in terms of being able to account for those guys. Even with Tatum getting his, they limited production from other guys. I mean, Derek White still had 16 points and 5 assists on 7 of 14 shooting, but virtually no one else did much of anything for a large part of this game. If the Magic can retain that, they could make this very interesting. But it's about being consistent and doing exactly that. Because if they can't, they might be as good as done. Moving on to the Lakers and Timberwolves game, also on Friday, that again, with alternating in between that and the draft, I did catch a good portion of, and then ultimately had to track the rest. But it's safe to say that with how everything went, yeah, this was just a game that was much harder to watch if you were a Lakers fan during this time. Because what they would do a good job of doing is getting LeBron involved early and often. For a person that hadn't necessarily been having the greatest scoring output to start off the game, he truly caught fire, especially in this first half. I think at a point he was up to like 22 or so. The only downside to that was that with LeBron and even Reeves to an extent going off, their shooters weren't necessarily efficient, and Luka Doncic in large part struggled. Now, I think there was something saying that he was sick. Maybe that could have played a factor in it. At the same time, the production was clearly not there. Even with a couple of buzzer beaters that he would get, one to end off this first half that would see them go up 58-54, and then another at the end of the third, it wasn't consistent enough. He was just not good tonight. And again, defense again, in terms of guarding up the Timberwolves shooters, especially when it comes to the early sequence in this third quarter. Like, they were just, it felt like they were so lazy. Like, they were just coming off of sequences where they turn the ball over, and then you're in a situation where you have the numbers against them, and you are still finding a way to not be in the proper rotation at the right time. And one of those especially, like, Doncic is right there, and you just give up an easy pass from Michael Conley to Anthony Edwards for a three in your face as you're staring at him. And that kind of lack of, I guess, attention to detail, honestly, is what it really comes down to. Is like you just think that you can get away with leaving the opportunity for open shots on the table, and that you aren't going to pay for doing so. But Chris Finch had himself another well-coached game here, and the Timberwolves were able to take full advantage of it in terms of executing. I mean, sure, the Lakers would get a score to tie up the ball game here, but the Timberwolves would eventually go on a 30-18 overall run to close out this ball game. Some of this portion, which I watched live, despite LeBron James once more trying his best to make some things happen. Even he wasn't susceptible to some of the BS, because they would get within one over the course of this run at nearly the halfway mark. So I'm thinking, okay, they've got themselves a chance to make things happen, and then shit hit the fan after that, because baked into it would be a 16-5 run for the Timberwolves, started off by a weird-ass gaff from LeBron. I mean, he literally had the ball right near him, and he just refused to grab it. It went right into Jaden McDaniels' hands, and he gets another easy layup to go. Oh yeah, apparently, in terms of what he was able to do, their paint defense, again, just tied back into their lack of attention to detail and lack of defensive intensity. The fact that he was able to do what he did in the paint and give the Timberwolves that overall advantage down there is insane. To get into some of the metrics, I mean, you can see that they had 56 points in the paint, the Timberwolves, compared to the Lakers' 26. And they were also able to get 28 points off of 16 Lakers turnovers, while the Timberwolves themselves had a clean game with just 8. Both of those things made up the difference. And in terms of that paint margin, that came in large part due to Jaden McDaniels, of all people. He would have himself another 30-point ball game to cap off a really great performance with 5 rebounds and 2 steals on 13 of 22 shooting with just a single 3, giving himself 24 points in the paint, which set a Timberwolves franchise record in a playoff game. Would have definitely thought the Garnets, of all people, would have pulled that off already, but no. Jaden McDaniels etched himself into the history books in the organization with that one. Anthony Edwards also, too, not to be outdone, 29 points, 8 rebounds, and 8 assists with 2 steals for him on 12 of 26 shooting and 5 threes. Julius Randle had 22 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists on 6 of 13 shooting, and Naz Reid had 11. Dante DiVincenzo contributed 10 despite not having the best shooting night. And he did also get 3 blocks and a steal. So his defensive effort was certainly there. Can't deny that. Nickeil Alexander-Walker also finished with 4 points, but it's much better than Rudy Gobert, who just had 1. And that is not something that the Timberwolves will get away with again, but if you're doing all of those other things, well, you don't need them to score at all, honestly. LeBron would have 38 points, 10 rebounds, and 4 assists on 13 of 21 shooting with 5 threes. Austin Reeves also had 5 threes and contributed 20 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists. Doncic, again, poor night for him. He'd been averaging around 34 in the first couple, and then proceeded to have just 17, 7, and 8 here with 5 steals on 6 of 16 shooting. No one else, despite it looking as though some of these other players were efficient in the limited shots that they took, that was exactly the problem. Limited shots because of just errant passes all over the place. That led to more turnovers and more possessions for the Timberwolves, quite simply. 13 more shots from the field. And they were able to make 7 more of those. So that's just, do with that what you will at that point. Man, horrible. I probably should have mentioned this first or gotten into this first, but again, the Pacers-Bucks game on Friday would also be on NBA TV, weirdly enough. And let's just say that while Damian Lillard would contribute a little bit, the Bucks would avoid getting swept, or avoid the chance of a sweep, by getting their first win of the series, 117 to 101. Dame had just 7 points, 3 rebounds, and 5 assists on 2 of 12 shooting. Certainly not a great night for him. And honestly, this game was a lot closer than it appeared earlier on through what I was tracking. But at the same time, something, and I mean something, fucking clicked out of nowhere. Because you would have not only Giannis Antetokounmpo give you another great basketball game, but you would also have Gary Trent Jr. just go absolutely stupid for the first time in literally, I'm not going to lie, depending on how you view him, it had been a few years since he has ever had a performance like this. The fact that this man, I think they said something about him hitting 5 threes in a single quarter, and then you mean to tell me he would finish this game with the same amount of points as Giannis? How are you going to try to, counter that if you're the Pacers and you're just leaving guys like Gary Trent Jr. that wide open? That ain't going to do you no help at all. Not going to lie. 14 of 19 shooting for Giannis Antetokounmpo, who would finish with 37 points, 12 rebounds, and 6 assists. Gary Trent Jr. would also, as I just said, match that with 9 threes on the night on 11 of 16 shooting. AJ Green would also hit 4 threes by himself for 12 points, quick 12 points. Kyle Kuzma even hit a damn 3 for crying out loud. And then the Pacers could not match that efficiency, or volume for that matter, despite having the same amount of attempts. And again, most of those looks were generated later on when this wasn't even remotely close. Tyrese Halliburton, who finished with 14 points and 10 assists on 5 of 11 shooting. Now again, a couple of those buckets did come in garbage time. But again, if you mean to tell me that you're going to have him be that efficient from the field, like, if you're in his shoes, you got to be a little more aggressive. I mean, Pascal Siakam, for example, had 28 points and 5 rebounds on 12 of 19 shooting. And Aaron Nesmith even had 18 points with 7 rebounds and 3 assists on 7 of 13 shooting. But outside of that, no one else really did much of anything. I mean, Mathurin struggled despite having 9 points early. Nembhard struggled. Miles Turner had just 6 points on 1 of 9 shooting. So if I'm looking at all that and seeing that play out, it would have been much better to see him just take a little bit more of that scoring approach in this one. Not necessarily a problem with trying to get teammates involved, but if they're not doing a great job of making the shots they need to make to get themselves into a ball game, well, you've got to take it upon yourself in some cases. Moving on to the Cavs and the Heat yesterday, and apparently there was an exchange after Game 2 between Darius Garland and Tyler Hero, essentially having Garland call Hero out for being a cone and stating that the Cavs' game plan was to consistently attack him. Hero had a snappy response to him. And I was looking to see how they would end up doing against each other, to be honest. But as I did end up finding out, Garland was out with a toe injury. So he wasn't going to be playing this ball game. And honestly, from the standpoint of having a true ball handler on the Cavs roster at this point, that could have very much hurt them. Honestly, it was looking like that could, too. I mean, the Heat got into a rhythm early. They would go up with a 15-6 lead, as they would be able to keep the Cavs' offense stagnant for the most part. And then you even had Kel'el Ware at a point hit a 3. And I was thinking at that point immediately, if you could have him doing that for you, and continuing to develop that could pose a little bit of trouble for the Cavs, because that would create some space in the paint for other players to slash and attack the rim. Get some of those tall guys like Jared Allen or Evan Mobley out of that area to create room for some of these smaller guys to sneak in for layups and mid-range shots and things. It was looking like the Heat could legitimately steal this game, especially with the Cavs being a little weaker. Safe to say that would change tremendously. And I suppose that while Garland himself can be susceptible to be hunted on defense, let's just say that, I mean, hey, while it wasn't necessarily them going at Tyler Hero every time, what you can't deny is that Tyler Hero is a part of this starting roster, and this starting roster would proceed to crumble completely. Because since that very point that they went up 15-6 in the first quarter at the 6-minute and 46-second mark, the Cleveland Cavaliers would then go on a 33-5 run, baked in with a Max Strus buzzer beater at the end of the first quarter. And then you would have Donovan Mitchell and DeAndre Hunter go back-to-back from 3 to open up the second quarter. You had Evan Mobley making them. You had Jaren Allen dunking it home on Bam Adebayo and Well, Kawhi at that point, just attacking the hell out of Bam Adebayo the whole time. It was just terrible. And then the overall run would increase to 56-27 by the end of the first half, as Jarrett Allen would continue to heat it up. Like, they literally, on the broadcast, or on the halftime show, would mention that Allen was leading the way with 16 points by himself. And all of the buckets that he scored at this time, they weren't anything extremely crazy. Yes, a couple of dunks on Adebayo and then just a trio of fucking Heat players at the same time. But a lot of these were just routine cuts from him trying to set screens to get other players open off the ball and things like that. Just more traditional offense. The crazier plays were being made by other players. And it wasn't always one person at one time, obviously. Everybody, and I mean absolutely everyone, was getting involved. Ty Jerome started getting deep in his bag of fucking tricks as well. Continuing to be the important role player that he has been for this squad off the bench. And ultimately, Donovan Mitchell would then close out the third quarter with a three-pointer of his own to increase the lead to 24. The fourth quarter would still see the Cavs keep in some important players naturally, but it wasn't even worth it because the Heat just continued getting their ass kicked. Even when they would put in the bench players, Jalen Tyson was cooking them niggas. Javonte Green got a fucking bucket. Isaac Okoro got multiple buckets on 3 straight fucking possessions in a row. The Pella Lawson three-pointer that apparently to end off the game didn't help them because they still lost by 37 points as the Cavs would win 124-87. And literally, that slot was just representative of how the Heat might be feeling at this point. Because, bro, to allow yourself to lose like that in the Kaseya Center in Miami, they just don't even, they probably aren't even invested in truly seeing this shit through anymore. And that's terrible. When you have a team that is feeling like that, it is never a good sign of their chances. Sam Merrill went scoreless, and so did Dean Wade. But that didn't even end up mattering at all, as they would literally see 6 players still get in double digits, and most other players shoot fairly well. Even Donovan Mitchell having, for all intents and purposes, one of his few down games this season with just 13 points on 4 of 14 shooting, the Cavs were still able to do this without Darius Garland. And again, it came from the most unlikeliest places. Jarrett Allen would continue leading the way with a 22-point double-double on 8 of 9 shooting, as DeAndre Hunter would get 21 points off the bench with 4 assists and 3 assists, 4 rebounds and 3 assists, on 6 of 8 shooting with 3 threes, as Evan Mobley would get 19 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 assists on 8 of 13 shooting. Max Strus with 18 on 7 of 13 shooting, 9 rebounds and 5 assists to go along with that. And then Ty Jerome with a 13-point, 11 assists, and 2 steal ball game in just 22 minutes off the bench, all without a single turnover. Up and down the fucking rotation. They are so fucking deep. It is simple as that. And still, the fact that every one of these players can have that kind of performance in the first place without virtually any resistance is a huge concern for a Heat team that for years had been built on defense. Like, at that point, why are we even continuously talking about Heat culture this, Heat culture that? This is not fucking Heat culture. You're not going to see a fucking Heat team go out like that. I expect more energy, more consistently out of that squad. And then to just go out like that is horrible. They need to stop giving Nikola Jovic minutes, first of all. Because for him to shoot 7 shots and just hit 1 in 19 minutes for just 3 points, getting the most minutes off the bench, it's not worth it. And granted, you could throw in any number of players off of here off of this bench here. I mean, Highsmith is not necessarily a sharpshooter, but let's be honest. I mean, Lawson is probably considered as one, and Robinson is considered as one. Maybe you could attribute that to it just not being Nikola Jovic's night, but at the same time, this entire series has not been a good one for him. I mean, I can just, bro, he has not been a good rotational piece for them in this series. I mean, literally, in this playoff so far, these 3 games combined, averaging just 4.7 points on 25% shooting and just 13% from 3. If you're looking for shooting, per se, off the bench, he's not answering that call. And it got you out of this ball game. Now, it also didn't help that, maybe he would have to play a little less if Andrew Wiggins was performing, which he hasn't been either. Another game reminiscent of the last one. Just 10 points yet again. 3 of 10 shooting yet again with just 2 threes. That is not a good performance for a person that was acquired at the trade deadline. Not a good performance. Davion Mitchell had 16 points on 7 of 11 shooting with 2 threes, and also had 5 assists and 4 rebounds without a turnover. Bam Adebayo felt the pressure indeed. I mean, he was trying to carry the load, but 22 points, 9 rebounds, and 6 turnovers to just 1 assist on 9 of 20 shooting. He even had to hit 4 threes, most of them from literally the left corner of the court. And 1 was a fadeaway. If you have to settle for those shots and you're the Heat at that point, you know you're in fucking trouble. Tyler Hero didn't even provide anything for them. Just 13 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists for him on 5 of 13 shooting with a single 3. They gotta find some kind of intensity, because to go out like that again, potentially at home, that would be a horrible look on their part. Moving on to the Warriors and Rockets game last night, and outside of the damn 3-pointer that Jalen Green got to end off the first quarter in the game, both teams, yet again, hunkering down on defense early to make things as difficult as possible for each other's offense. It's as simple as that. Now, even with that being said, I mean, bro, the Warriors had some great plays here. They threw multiple bodies at Alperen Sengun, and he did struggle early. He was still able to get his in some cases, but Looney got him good. And honestly, over the course of the game, even with them putting some smaller defenders on him at times, they were able to make life hell for him down there. He wasn't able to get his way like he could in the first couple. So that was a good sign to see early, and that was reflective of how the rest of the game went. Van Vliet would have a pretty hot start to the ball game. He had 13 points in the first quarter. That wouldn't last throughout the rest of the game either. But that was certainly fun while it lasted. And the Rockets certainly needed it, because he had also been another player that had been just struggling from the field in terms of scoring all series long for them. You know, Warriors would eventually, at the start of the second quarter, go through another slump, because they would just keep on turning the goddamn ball over. And it was just, again, simple, routine passes were just being executed in the laziest ways, and it just led to some gut-wrenching turnovers. There were some other plays for the Rockets, though, that you just have to give them credit for as well. While not all of them resulted in a turnover, like, they were swarming the entire fucking game. They were still doing their best to face guard Stephen Curry and hold them and grab them and throw them all across the yard and things like that. But really, when it comes to some of these passing lanes, bro, they were just getting their hands right in there. Because, again, the Warriors are predicated on trying to swing around the ball that much. But, that kind of offense can certainly run into some challenges when facing off against a team that is that damn fast compared to them. And you certainly saw that on display from the Rockets, not only in terms of them being fast and flying to the ball, but also them making up for them being out of position in some cases with their length as well. And ultimately, the Rockets were able to go up by as much as 13 in this quarter. Stephen Curry had also been held in check, again, with all of that being said, over the course of a run that would see the Rockets get on a 32-point tear. But even with that being said, while the Rockets would have another open three-point response by Tari Eason in this one, the Warriors would end off the second quarter right, akin to how they did things in the very first game. They went on a 9-0 run with Stephen Curry getting involved for 4 points here, and then Buddy Hield also hitting a timely three-pointer and a layup to bring the lead down to 3. It would remain that way for a good portion of the third quarter, as you would have Quentin Post get involved a lot on the boards. He had yet to score, and he was not shooting well. But one thing that he was able to do was kind of match the intensity on the offensive glass and just overall rebounding compared to what the Rockets were doing. He also was able to get a little more physical in the paint, even if he isn't necessarily all there yet. He did manage to nab a block against Amen Thompson on a drive. Now, granted, the Rockets still got a few offensive rebounds here and there, but ultimately what Post was doing echoed throughout the entire team, as multiple people would just try to match that intensity as well. And all you want to see in that situation is the effort. Now, not everything was going to go their way. I mean, obviously, Steven Adams was still getting play here. But, an improved intensity on the offensive glass and at least defending against it would certainly be of benefit later on, as the Warriors would actually take a temporary lead. When Steven Adams was in the game, though, they would also hack the shit out of him. They did start it in the second quarter, as, again, he's not necessarily regarded as a great free throw shooter. And, they wouldn't back down from doing it despite him making all of his last 4 to close out the game, but that's neither here nor there. Either way, after this stretch out of the timeout, you would have Schengen just get another easy bucket for his standards. And he would get yet another one. Because, again, there isn't necessarily, in terms of physicality, sure, but in some points, you would just understand that Schengen's just going to win that battle most of the time, unless you make it really difficult on him. Stephen Curry would then go ballistic, going on a little bit of a tear of his own, and giving the Warriors yet another shot at the lead. The Rockets would try to get things spaced out by going up to 5 before Buddy Hield got right back in it with another timely three-pointer. And again, his minutes, though he has been an inconsistent shooter in some cases, in this game, the minutes he logged were exceptionally great. They paid off tremendously. Moses Moody as well would eventually help the Warriors take the lead in the early fourth quarter. with a three-pointer of his own. You would then have Dillon Brooks tie up the ball game. At this point, he's just like okay, like nobody cares. To start off like the game, like he had 3 fouls early and got his bitch ass out of there. Jabari Smith Jr. would continue to give the Rockets good minutes as well before Stephen Curry tied it back up with a 3 in response, and Buddy Hield would then help them take a temporary lead before Quentin Post would also, after a couple of Steven Adams free throws after another hack, get his first points of the night. And from there, even with Dillon Brooks doing another fake thing and getting some more points here, the Warriors hunkered down as a team collectively to go on what would be a 21-9 run to close out the ball game, as Gary Payton II would make some exceptional cuts on Curry assists, and would then, with 4 minutes and 29 seconds left, as Curry drove in, he hit a fucking behind-the-back pass to Gary Payton II in the corner, who would then hit a 3. And then, on another Brandon Podziemski pass, hit another shot to get himself on a personal run and overall tear that kind of got the game closer to being put away. Stephen Curry would ultimately hit a three-pointer, of course, on a Gary Payton assist, rewarding him for those good passes, a string of really good passes. Brandon Podziemski would hit a couple of free throws before getting a shot that would ultimately bring the Warriors lead up to 9. The final seconds saw a little bit of sloppy play from both teams, honestly, but at the end of it, the Warriors would prevail despite facing those deficits throughout the game, 104-93, as Stephen Curry would have 36, 9 assists, and 7 rebounds on 12 of 23, shooting with 5 threes. Buddy Hield had 17 points and 5 threes off the bench. Gary Payton II had 16 points on 7 of 9 shooting off the bench, including that monster stretch in just the fourth quarter alone. Podziemski had 10 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists without a turnover. Draymond had 7 points and 8 rebounds and 4 assists with 2 steals and 3 blocks, just exacting a great measure of defense that the team very much needed in this one to sort of counter what the Rockets were trying to do. Quentin Post had 12 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal, and a block without a single turnover despite having just 2 points. And Moses Moody also added in 7. Kuminga also had 7 in a starting role. His minutes were definitely not up to par. But again, he even ended up getting some buckets at a couple points in the game that brought the game closer, which you have to credit him for. Still, I guess that Steve Kerr is just not all that willing to trust him right now. And it's just really tough to see. But, you know, with some of the decision-making that he had, you can't necessarily be surprised at the same time. It's just an all-around unfortunate situation. As for the Rockets, despite Van Vliet starting off with 13, he would finish the game with just 17, scoring just 4 points in the final 36 minutes. And 3 of those points came when the game was somewhat out of reach. All on 4 out of 5 of 14, shooting with 3 threes. Schengen, again, 15, 11, and 4. He was going to get his in some cases, but he did not shoot all that well. For a person who had been shooting 50% from the field in the regular season, as one of the broadcasters mentioned, he did shoot just 7 of 18 in this game, and also hit just 1 of the 6 free throws. Now, one of the misses did come on a pretty crazy sequence. He had a routine dunk, and he just whiffed that opportunity. I don't know how he missed it, to be completely honest with you, but it's all right. Dylan Brooks and Jabari Smith Jr. would combine for 25 points on 8 of 16 shooting, I guess. They would both hit 3 threes. Dylan Brooks' bum ass also fouled on a ball game. Of course he did. Amen Thompson. A lot of these came off of attempts to put the ball back in the basket. But this is also a bit glaring if you are a Rockets fan, because in no universe right now should Amen Thompson be taking 16 attempts. But to then just go 5 of 16 from the field for 11 points is asinine. Steven Adams and Tari Eason both had 8. And then we have to deal with Jalen Green again and talk about him. Because Charles Barkley said the exact same thing, essentially. Like, this is coming after the game in which he put up 38. Like, he was essentially saying you can't just go from 7 points to 38 and then back down to single digits, essentially. And that was literally what he would do in this ball game. He would have just 9 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists on 4 of 11 shooting with just a single 3, then try to talk smack to Draymond Green at the end of the game. I don't know what happened there, but again, they are paying you a rookie contract extension right now and value you at least as one of the 2 core players on this team for the future. The fact that you are consistently flip-flopping like this is not a good sign for a person considered to be a burgeoning superstar. And this is why I do say that he reminds me of Kevin Porter Jr. a lot. Now, granted, in terms of upside and potential, it's way higher than that of Kevin Porter Jr.'s right now. Even though I think Jalen Green is probably a year younger than him at this point, which is crazy enough. I'm pretty sure Kevin Porter Jr. himself is only like 24 or 25 years old. He's not that old. Yeah, he's going on 25. He will turn 25 next week. He's just a little under like 2 years or so then. Younger than him. A little over a year. Like there's no way though that you have the potential to be that great, and yet those inconsistent extremes are that glaringly bad. Because when he's on, like he was on Wednesday, certainly he's on. But when he goes cold, it clearly hurt the team here. And you just cannot have that if you're trying to express trust in one of your star players. But that'll do it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.